You may or may not have noticed that the temperatures are escalating outside. And I've become curious about what people do when that happens. Like, I went to the mountains last week with my son, and that was relief from the temperatures down here in Wilmington. And I know that some people will stake out a claim on the beach. This is their spot next to the sea with the breeze. And I know that some people will go to a movie or to a restaurant that has air conditioning. Or some people simply refuse to get in their car while the sun is shining. Or some people actually have been known to loiter in the grocery store. I can see that you resonate with that. I didn't even recognize that loitering in the grocery store was a way of finding refuge from the heat until I was pregnant with my second son, and it was July. And now in Hawaii, homes don't have air conditioning because most of the time we have across the Pacific Ocean this beautiful trade wind that comes in and keeps everything cool, but not in July and not when you're 9 months pregnant. So it took me about 2 weeks to figure out what I was doing loitering in the grocery store to find relief from the heat. And I'm thinking now I don't have that same excuse that I had before, but I could make a more sophisticated excuse up. I could say, oh, I'm not loitering. I am looking for some organic, fat-free kind of yogurt that's made and produced by goats that are raised in Grecian lowlands. Yes, that's what I'm looking for. And if somebody ever handed me some yogurt, I could say, oh, did I say Grecian? I actually meant Slavic lowlands. So that is a way, among the others, that we can find relief from the escalating temperatures outside. So as we have this external experience in the month of July, I'm also looking at what we do spiritually, what we invite in as spiritual strategies to address those metaphysical hot spots in our lives, those metaphysical experiences of things that have us hot and bothered. There are ways. There are ways, because what happens with those hot spots is, well, any number of things. They become the darker parts of ourselves that we don't want to look at. The first person to actually articulate those darker parts of ourselves was Carl Jung, and he called these darker parts our shadow. He said shadow is that piece of our personality that we've actually repressed or denied and carried around with us ever since we repressed or denied it. In 1998, Debbie Ford came out with a book called Dark Side of the Light Chasers. And in that book, she had magnificent strategies. And what I continue to appreciate about Debbie Ford's strategies to this day is they look at the whole person. They embrace all of the self. It doesn't try to deny that they exist. It doesn't try to fix anything saying that it's broken. These strategies don't try to eliminate those parts of ourselves and just cut them out. They actually embrace the whole self. So the good and what Unity calls the other good, the positive and the negative, the love and the fear, the acceptable and the unacceptable. And I love that about the shadow work. It's very popular, but it's also very powerful work. Robert Bly explains part of the shadow work this way. He says, when we're born, we have a 360-degree personality. And as infants, we express that 360-degree personality. Unedited, uncensored, it's free, it flows. But as we grow up, we are told that what we're doing is not okay, it's too negative, it's not acceptable, whatever it is, like whether we got censured for crying or punished for being angry or shamed for being too proud of ourselves for something that we accomplished. We suppress those slices of that 360 degree. We start suppressing them because we think that they're unacceptable. And then they just sit there. And then they just sit there. But as soon as things get hot and something starts to happen in our lives, they pop up, right? Or we make a commitment for our own spiritual unfoldment, and those shadow pieces that we suppress start popping up. Have you ever played in the arcade whack-a-mole? I'm not kidding. This is what happens with our shadow. It pops up, and just like the mole, you think, okay, I'm going to push it back down, but two more pop up, and then try to get those two. Pretty soon they're popping up all over the place because we have a commitment to the light. We have a commitment to our unfoldment. We have a commitment to our wholeness. But in the meantime, we're thinking, if I can just get rid of those, then I can be whole. But that's not the way it works at all. That's not the shadow work at all. It's all about accepting. So maybe you're familiar with the phrase, what you resist persists, especially when it's something like on that shadow side. What you resist persists. And that's actually an application of the law of magnification. We very often talk about the law of magnification as the law of expansion. And in Unity in particular, and other New Thought traditions, we talk about it in that positive way. We want to expand our capacity for goodness. We want to amplify and magnify our prosperity and that abundance, that experience of abundance we have. But the law works both ways. So if we are trying and working very hard to suppress those shadow parts, then what are we going to get more of? More shadows. I mean, it just makes total sense. Total sense. We are taught from a very young age to be afraid of the darkness. We are taught either through nursery rhymes or Disney movies or even dinner time table conversation, like, did you hear what Mr. Whitten did? Yeah, did you hear what Mrs. Johnson did? And you think, I'm never going to be that, even though inside we have that desire to be just like they were. We're learned to be afraid of those parts of ourselves. Even bedtime stories teach us to be afraid. Good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs fly. Well, who's going to go to sleep thinking about bed bugs? Oh my gosh, I didn't know what they were for the longest time, but unfortunately now I do. So, in fact, we have grown so afraid over the years that we have built an imaginary wall between us and the darkness. We have developed rituals and psychologies and religions and pills to distract us from the darkness. We have focused on the light seeking to eliminate the darkness, and yet in the end, the darkness is always there with us. It's always waiting because what we resist persists. In the 13th chapter of the book of Matthew in the Bible, Jesus tells a number of parables, one of which is about a woman who puts some leaven into the flour, and then all of the flour rises. Now, if you're not a baker, leaven is something like baking soda or yeast that you put in, because otherwise the bread is going to be very flat, and the leavening makes it very full. So a lot of people like to put leavening in the flour. So this is the whole parable. This is it. The kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal till the whole was leavened. I mean, that's it. You know, you can pack a lot in a very short sentence. In the Hebrew tradition, leaven was not considered a good thing. Leaven was actually a metaphor for sin and evil. So you wouldn't really want to put sin and evil into anything, because then it would contaminate the whole of whatever you put it into. So now thinking about the law of magnification, that leavening power goes into something, and pretty soon it's all infected with sin and evil. And Jesus, who was educated in the Hebrew tradition and in the Hebrew Jewish religion, knew this. And in other parts of the gospel, he talked about leaven representing the symbol of corruption. He warned us, he said, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. Beware of the leaven of Herod, because he saw the false teachings and hypocrisy. Even if there was a little bit, it could infect and corrupt an entire nation. So then the question is, how did Jesus, who talked about leaven as being corrupt, get to leaven being like the kingdom of heaven? Yeah, I struggle with this one until I finally realized the law of magnification works both ways. That power, the penetrating power of the leaven can work in ways that promote sin, that promote evil. So what is sin? Sin is missing the mark. It's a mistaken interpretation of the truth. What is evil? It's a collection of sin, or a coalescence of sin or missing the mark kind of ideas. That's what evil is. We think more on that and we get more of that. But we can equally apply the law for the kingdom of heaven, that harmony we experience in mind, body, and spirit, when we use the leavening, penetrating power to magnify that kind of good harmony in our lives. Metaphysically, this is what it looks like. The kingdom of heaven represents a state of consciousness that is in harmony with divine mind, or with God. The three measures of meal represent our threefold nature, mind, body, and spirit. As we work the penetrating power of truth, we open ourselves to the possibility of transforming ignorance by allowing the light of understanding to permeate until all is enlightenment. I really, really, really like this. Who knew that one little sentence could say so much? And to invite us to embrace the whole of who we are. I especially like this part. As we work the penetrating power of truth, we open ourselves to the possibility of transforming ignorance. And isn't that something that needs to go on in our lives, and in our community, and in our nation, and in the world? All those parts of ourselves that we've suppressed and that we have become ignorant to. You know what? It's okay to cry. It's okay to get angry. It's okay to laugh. We're really clear about that. We're really clear about the joy. We're really clear about the peace. But all the parts, all the 360 degrees, when we remove the ignorance from them and bring those parts into the light, then we realize all is light. All of us is light. I think this is amazing, fantastic, phenomenal news. Let's say the underlined part together. As we work the penetrating power of truth, we open ourselves to the possibility of transforming ignorance. Let's just say the rest. By allowing the light of understanding to permeate until all is enlightenment. Who's in for that? Who's in for that? And if you want to think about it, that's okay too. That's really, really okay. This is all about facing the darkness and the bravery it takes from within us to face the darkness. The really good news and the relieving news and the relief in the shade is that it doesn't have to be hard, and it doesn't have to be tough. Facing our shadows can be delightful. It doesn't require drama or histrionics or tons of tears or gnashing of the teeth. Facing our shadow can be sweet, and it can be powerful, and it can be poignant. Debbie Ford, in her book, when she talks about the gift in all of this, she says she found out that there was gold hidden in her darkness, light hidden in her bad behavior, and power hidden in the traumas of her past. She said she realized her job was not to get rid of all that she perceived to be wrong or bad about herself, but in fact the opposite was true. It was her job, her spiritual job, to take her most human self and transform it into her most extraordinary self. And that's how she began to live a life beyond her wildest dreams. The shadow work, or what Carl Jung talked, the work of the heart warrior, involves three questions, or at least this is one of the strategies that you can use when you do shadow work, or the work of the heart warrior. Ask your shadow, what purpose do you serve? What do you need from me? And what gift do you have for me? Brene Brown says, only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. And I like that, because this is a journey of self-discovery. This is not something you can go to a workshop and learn about. It's not something that you show up on Sunday and learn about. This is an experience that we have. and that we can have. So I'm going to ask you, if you want to take a picture of the questions, take a picture on your phone now, because what we're going to go into is an experience of shadow work. We're going to go into a guided meditation. And in that guided meditation, we're going to use these 3 questions when we talk to our shadow and find what's their purpose in our life. What do they need from us? And what gift have they been carrying with us all this time? So let's sing Lead Me to the Light as we come into a time of meditation.